Hey, welcome back to Cream City Dreams. I'm your host, Megan Schultz, and this is the podcast where I introduce you to incredible Milwaukee women living their dream in the Cream City. And right now, we are in the In-Between series. That's what I'm calling this month of May. Finished up season 7 with Women Who Pivot, looking ahead in June to women who are bringing the joy to Milwaukee. The summer season is going to be all about joyful women. And in this small 4-part series in May, I'm talking with one incredible Milwaukee woman, Thekla Brumder Ross, and we're talking about attention. We're talking about where we put our attention, what we give it to, who steals it, and what we can do to reclaim it. I've been getting a lot of feedback about these episodes, so I know this is hitting a nerve for people. Social media, iPhones, Androids, computer screens, games, all the things. I think this is an issue for a lot of us. So grab a coffee, go for a walk, pull up a chair, and enjoy these episodes where hopefully you'll get some tidbits on reclaiming your own attention. Welcome back, listeners. If you have been following along for the last 2 weeks in what I'm calling this In-Between series in this month of May between season 7 and 8, then you know I have been talking to my friend and clinical psychologist, addiction specialist, and self-compassion and mindfulness thought leader, Thekla Brumder Ross. And we have been talking about attention, and more specifically, how our attention gets given, gets taken, gets stolen even by all of our devices, by big tech companies and social media platforms. And last week, we talked about what happens to our brains on these devices and these platforms. And this week, as we reach the halfway mark in this in-between season, I am excited to begin looking at some of the ways that we can help ourselves in all of this, because we do have agency. Last week, we talked about the neuroplasticity of the brain and how we can change our minds and our habits and our relationship to this technology. And we decided that we don't have to be captive victims of the machine. And so today we're moving into a discussion around mindfulness and compassion, which I know are 2 of your favorite subjects. So welcome back, Thekla.
Thank you so much. It's been so fun to do this with you, and you're so gifted as a podcaster and a mom. And in this topic, it's been really fun. We've gotten a lot of great feedback from our community about how much fun this conversation is and how needed this conversation is for each and every one of us. And we've heard some of the authors. You had spine poetry up in your initial advertisement for this podcast, and some of the authors have reached out to us saying, what? You're having so much fun with this conversation. So I just want people to know, don't be lured away. This is not all doom and gloom around the topic of digital mindfulness and digital addiction. We can make it fun, and we can do it together.
Yeah. And so many people are reaching out saying, can we do it together? And I think we talked, or one of the things we will talk about today is that idea of accountability and community and doing things in community, because I know for me, I need that so much, so much, because so in the digest, in the first week on the Friday digest, I shared a few things that I've been trying to notice, right? Which is another thing we'll talk about today. I'm just paying attention to where my attention goes. And I'm not even necessarily doing a whole lot to change it yet. We're going to talk about this detox that I'm going to take in June. So I set a few things that I was going to try. Like when I pick the kids up from school, I was going to leave my phone in the car and just see what happens. See how I felt. What happens in my body when I don't have my phone right in my hand. Or I was going to try to just stop a little bit before school pickup and go for a walk, just even if it's literally around the block, because I just need that moment of transition so that when I see my kids, I'm ready for them and not like, if I only had 5 more minutes. And then one that I think I didn't talk about, but that I've also been trying, is understanding that I am not a mom who can be 100% for hours and hours at a time. Like I was not the mom who loved playing Candyland with my kids. I don't know about you, but if I never see that game again, that is too soon. And so I'm trying to be more mindful about, okay, I got 15 minutes with my daughter right now. I am just going to be with her for these 15 minutes. My phone is not going to be here. It's not going to be an hour. It's not going to be 3 hours, but I can, right, 15 minutes right now. Let's do this and let's have it, us be connected. And what I appreciated, Thekla, is after I sent that, you sent me a voice memo that was like, here's what I'm going to try. I'm with you. And just knowing that we were in community around this was huge for me.
Huge. You're so not alone in that. I mean, it's why the rooms of recovery have been the long sustaining, most important element of recovery, is accountability and community and connection. So yeah, I met you right where you were. And I just want you to know that when I go on a walk around the block at the end of the day to transition from my office upstairs to my life downstairs, that I think of you. And I think I'm not alone. And I got to, even though I'm not meeting you outside on my block because we're on different blocks, I know that you're walking your block at your time and I'm on my block. And so then I have that common humanity, which we'll talk about today, which is a key pillar of self-compassion.
Yeah.
And I just want to thank you for your invitation on your digest sessions, because they're really inviting us to just go a little bit deeper. You know this, but Kit Hayes, the former head of YouTube Mental Health and now a coach who helps people actually take time away from their busy digital lives out in nature. Amazing coach. She and I have this book proposal that's floating around to different publishers. And one of the things we talk about is putting your hand on top of your phone, palm facing up. So instead of grabbing your phone, I heard you say in your shares, like, don't grab my phone to walk to pick up my kids and don't grab my phone. And so I've been thinking about, well, what if I placed my hand on top of my phone, palm facing up, and asked myself, what am I going to do on this device right now? Am I needing to get a task done? Do I need to call my husband to follow up on something? Like, what do I need to do? And I would say that my noticing this past week, during the day, it's a task I really need to get done. I need to contact a work colleague. I need to follow up on something I'm supposed to do. I need to, it's more immediate. After the hour of 5 o'clock or before sunrise, it's not immediate and it is not needed. And so when my palm is facing up after 5, it's like, nope, that can wait. That can wait for another time. And same thing in the morning. So I just want people to also think about, as they're getting curious, like, times of the day that their phone may or may not be as necessary as we think that they are.
Interesting.
So super interesting as we think about our behaviors. So remember, I'm imperfect on this journey too. I'm on the whole thing. I didn't get a guidebook that nobody else got just because I have a PhD in psychology. No. So it's really curious about our behaviors and.
Well, and after last week's episode on the brain and the way the companies have us, what's the word? They know us, but they can manipulate things, right? We talked about screen time and how many times you pick up your phone. And I think I wrote this in my newsletter the day that I checked, and it was only, I think I'd wrote my newsletter around noon. I'd picked up my phone 85 times. 85 times. I mean, I read, actually, it made me feel slightly better that the average is 205 times, but 85 times, like, what the heck could I possibly need by noon? 85 things, it's just, So I love this process of just being more aware of awareness and attention, which sort of leads us to where we're going today, because we're talking about mindfulness and we're talking about how mindfulness can help with being more graceful with ourselves, more self-compassionate. And I know this is a topic that you teach regularly and that is dear to you. So I wonder if maybe starting with just definitions could be helpful to us, because I think there's so much, it almost feels like self-compassion, self-care, they're such buzzwords and trendy words, right? But what do they actually mean? Because I think we confuse the two. Are we talking about massages? Does everybody just need to put their phone down and book a massage? Like, where are we going here?
I love it. I love it. And you're so right. For all the listeners on who are like, ugh, another self-care, self-compassion, blah, blah, blah. Now I'm going to press done.
Yeah.
I do that too. Self-compassion and self-care need a little rebrand, as my
Yeah.
husband likes to
Yes.
say. But you probably are going to be surprised by my first comment here, and then I'm going to really break down what the definition and difference is between self-care and self-compassion and why they actually need each other. They're not
Mm.
separate. And then I'll tell you about, we can stop there, and then I'll tell you a little bit about the 3 steps of self-compassion so people can start doing it. So the foundation of self-compassion actually begins with acknowledging our suffering.
Mm. Oh, I don't want to do that.
I know,
Right? That's
except for
hard.
I have a very inclusive definition of suffering. So suffering is any moment in time when your experience is other than what you want it to be.
Ooh. Wait, say that again. Say that
Yes,
again.
suffering is any moment in time when your experience is other than what you want it to be.
Ooh.
Okay, so what's happening with grabbing the phone is that my experience in this moment is maybe I'm uncomfortable or stressed out or something happened at work or my kids are yelling, right? That moment is discomfort. And that's my current state. And my desired state is something else. And that disconnect between there, that's when we want those dopamine hits. We're like, ooh, feel that, feel that. But
Mm.
part of and huge component of self-compassion is just pausing and naming, acknowledging, being a reporter to your suffering. I'm stressed right now. I have pain in my stomach. I'm thirsty. I need to go to the bathroom. I mean, honestly, we're ignoring our basic needs these days because of technology. So they can get quite simple if you can't tell. We're talking Maslow's hierarchy of needs here.
Yeah.
So the paradox of self-compassion is that we practice it not to feel better, but because we feel bad. We
Mm.
practice it not to feel better, but because we feel bad. So
Mm.
self-compassion isn't about resisting our pain or pretending it's not there. As I said, it's about being a reporter. Because if we don't, what happens to that pain or discomfort, that suffering? If we push it aside, if we numb, if we avoid, if we avert with phone, technology, whatever, drugs, it'll come back to visit us down the road in our bodies, in our relationships, with
Mm.
ourselves or with
Mm.
others.
Mm.
It'll come back to visit us. So I like to say, small mountain or big mountain, which one do you want to deal with? I
Yeah.
prefer the small mountains. So it's really pausing in the moment. And the difference there between self-care and self-compassion is self-care is a lot of what dominant culture has fed to us, as you said, the massage, the yoga, the sufficient rest, the play, the exercise. I mean, you can hear as my kids call it, my listing voice. You can hear me changing into this. And while all those things are really wonderful, and yes, I include some of them in my everyday life, they are quote unquote off the job. They are extra money. There's something you do like later. You schedule those, right? But what do you
Mm.
do in the moment when you're uncomfortable, stressed, annoyed, angry, sad?
Mm.
That is self-compassion. So self-compassion is being with yourself. Self-care is doing. There's the being versus doing distinction.
Mm.
So self-compassion is regarding yourself compassionately, and self-care, by contrast, is treating yourself compassionately. So people can go through the motions of self-care without having any self-compassion. And similarly, you can view yourself compassionately and still not take care of yourself. So they have to work together. Self-care
Yeah.
without self-compassion, it discharges a debt, usually causing suffering somewhere else in our life. Like it can lead to overwhelm and exhaustion. Let me just name for the pod audience. I'm raising my hand right now because if your self-care list has ever felt like an opportunity for shame or judgment because you didn't get it done, like raise your hand. That's me. Like you didn't get to the yoga class, you didn't get to the meditation class, you didn't do the thing. Self-care with self-compassion doesn't have to be earned or repaid. It's a muscle. And the more you practice it, the more you get used to it in the moment.
Mm.
So
Mm.
it's like emotional oxygen, basically,
Yeah.
when you support yourself with self-compassion. So, for example, like if I didn't get to the yoga class, I would say to myself, okay, the quintessential self-compassion question is, what do I need in this moment? Maybe I
Mm.
just need to pause. Maybe I could take a few mindful breaths myself, even if I didn't get to the yoga class. Like, is there part of the yoga class that I love? Maybe I love the Dharma and the mantra. Okay, maybe I can listen to a 10-minute Dharma or mantra as because I
Mm.
didn't get there, as opposed to shaming and judging myself because I didn't do something else on my to-do list.
I love that. I love that. So I'm thinking of how, in terms of what we're talking about in this series, in terms of technology and screens and reaching for our phones, I love this idea of what do I need in this moment? Because let me say, when I'm picking up my phone at 8 o'clock at night and I'm in my bed and I have the option of, the book or the phone, and I choose the phone, what do I need? And what am I getting from? I don't know if I need anything. I'm just scrolling, right? I'm just like, okay, finally my day is over. I'm tired. I don't know if my eyes have it in me to go back and forth and read. So I'm just going to be scrolling. I'm just going to go up and down because that's easier than back and forth. Like, can you say more about that idea of, yeah, what we need versus what we
Yeah.
want versus what we
I'm so
do?
glad you said something because Kristen Neff, who's like the doctor, the mother of self-compassion, amazing. Thank her for all of the incredible research that got us here. And Chris Germer, she was just saying the other day that she often can't answer the question, what do I need in this moment? And just
Mm,
asking the question is an intervention in itself. It's just the
mm,
pause.
yeah.
So last night we had a huge storm in Milwaukee, right? And I was going up after I put the kids to bed. It was one of those nights that I was going to go up and do extra work. And I sat in front of the computer and I was ready to get started. And I got this notification from Spectrum that said, your power might be variable in this time due to the storm. And I literally said out loud, yes.
Yes.
I needed external control to be like, nope, this isn't what you need in this moment. Sure, there are a million things you could do. There's always something you can do. My mom always says, do you need to do any work? I'm like, I can always do work. There's always something you can do. But what do I need in this moment? I needed to go sit downstairs on that couch, let the sun transition over my face, and just be with myself
Mm,
and get that nourishment that I said to you on our last pod nourishes me for days,
yeah.
whereas technology never nourishes me. Never after the fact am I like, it was so great that I got those extra hours on my email.
Yes. I feel that. I think I talked about that too in the digest today about what I'm not going to miss about giving up social media for a month. There's so many things, that feeling, that just that, ugh, when I'm done, ugh, did I get anything done? Was this actually helpful? Sometimes it is. But most of the time it's not really. It's just a time filler and it's a time suck. So,
Can I just quickly tap on? I saw a statistic this week that I wanted to share with our listeners and you. And remember, I'm not sharing these for doom and gloom. I'm sharing these for awareness creating as
mm,
we're exploring our relationship to our technology. So, the average person spends 2 hours and 23 minutes daily on social media, which is more than 16 hours a week.
wow.
And that's a global number. In the United States, it's supposed to be higher, but I'm sharing the minimal global number.
Okay, 16 hours a week.
More than 16 hours a week.
Okay, times 52. I'm just getting my calculator. Times 52. That's 832 hours a year.
Mhm. What do you want to, what do you do? Is that how, question, no judgment here. Is that how you want to spend your time? If it's not, you're in the right place. We're exploring it. We're unpacking it. We're going to figure out what you do want to do with those 16 plus hours a week.
Which actually, when I divided that by 24, right, hours in a day, that's 34 days. That's a
Mm-hmm.
month. That's over a month,
Over a month that you
nonstop, like a month, 24 hour, 24/7 that we are on socials.
minimum. Again, that's
Minimum.
the
Yeah. And that's
lowest.
minimum because that was, yeah, me just
Mm-hmm.
multiplying by
Mm-hmm.
16. Whoa. When you put
And
it like that, when you say 2 hours a day, yes, my mind goes, ugh, that's a lot even for a day, but it doesn't
mm-hmm,
compute that
mm-hmm,
that's an entire month of the year. One
mm-hmm.
twelfth of our year is spent on social media. That's just, yeah. You can see why this is so timely. You can see why it's a lot of people are talking about this now.
People know that just like we all wake up to awareness after, maybe we've experimented with drugs and alcohol in college, for instance, and then you sort of wake up like, is that a healthy relationship? Should I be doing that as much? Then you sort of step back and you explore your relationship. We again, we didn't get a guidebook, 2008, and here we are, 2025, and we're like, uh-oh,
Yeah.
months going by without our active awareness around, are we choosing this or is it choosing us?
Yes. Yeah.
Which honestly leads us into the three steps of self-compassion, if I'm honest. So the first step is awareness, like
Yeah.
being a mindful reporter to your thoughts and your feelings in this moment without judgment. You don't need to fix them, change them, solve them, just notice. Just notice. You don't need to, some people like to say it out loud. I love some of my most deep self-compassion moments are in the car when I can just like yell it out loud. I don't know what it is about the car that gives me that freedom. But you can
Yeah.
say it quietly under your breath. I have a dear colleague, a physician who uses gentle touch, and she'll, put her hand on her heart or on her arm, and that really lets her know that she's aware in this moment of how she's feeling.
Yeah. It reminds me too of those meditation teachers who have said, you know, meditation I find is hard as it should be. That's why it's called a practice, right? But they say when you find your monkey mind drifting, just to say thinking,
Thank you.
and bringing
Beautiful.
it right back to the breath. And so, yeah, if we use this technique in terms of just how we're feeling or the emotion that we're experiencing, or yeah, I love that.
My meditation practice is while I unload the dishwasher, and the pots and pans are my teachers. And often I tell people, I'm like, I'm a clinical psychologist. I'm not like over here in this void where there's no thoughts. That doesn't exist. I'm constantly bringing myself back to like plate over plate, right foot, left foot, right foot, left foot, fork, drawer. Like I'm constantly having to bring myself back to the moment.
Mm,
So
mm,
you're right. It's a beautiful practice, and practice is how we get better and build confidence, right?
mm-hmm,
No one's born
mm-hmm,
with confidence. It comes through active practice. So awareness is the first part of self-compassion. The second part is self-kindness, treating ourselves like we would treat a friend. Podcast listeners, ask yourself, do you treat yourself like you would treat your best friend?
mm, yeah.
I don't treat myself like I treat my best friends at all. That means we have to turn down the volume on our inner critic. Julia Samuel, a famous psychologist in the UK who does a lot of work around grief, she calls it the shitty committee. Turn the volume down on your shitty committee.
Love
And
it.
yes, and turn the volume up on your radical self-love. And I know that sounds very woo, very,
Mm,
very woo, but what we're trying to say is that yes, your inner critic has served you probably in your childhood, in your life to survive and to get to the point where you are, but is it serving you right now in this moment to be so hard on yourself? Yes, we all
mm,
grew up in a culture of like no pain, no gain. Turns out the research is in. You actually change your behavior better when you're kinder to yourself than when you shame yourself.
mm-hmm.
So it's really about practicing that. And again, Kristen Neff says treat yourself like you would a friend. I have notes up that say like be kind to my friend Thekla. Like I have to remind like that I'm my own friend.
Mm,
I have colleagues who have it up. I've had colleagues who've sent me pictures of their be kind to their friend notes for years that they've had hanging up on their mirror. So whatever way works for you to sort of practice it and know that we're just an imperfect mess.
Maybe that could be a little practice for you listeners this week. Get out a sticky note and just write yourself a reminder. Slap it up on your mirror in the bathroom and say it to yourself every morning. It's not that hard.
Not
I
rocket
mean, actually,
science.
that's not true. Maybe it's easy, but it's what is that thing people say? It's simple, but it's not easy. You know what I mean? It's
Hmm.
simple to do, but maybe it takes a little while. It's a practice. It takes a little while to have it feel easy to say, yes, today you have permission to be kind to yourself.
It may feel awkward. That's okay. That's normal. It felt awkward for me too. I was a super skeptic of self-compassion before I started. Super skeptic. Like
Mm,
none of this simple stuff is actually going to make a difference. For me, and the research is out, it does.
mm,
6,000 studies around compassion and loving kindness meditation and mantras and how they actually change our psychology and physiology. So
yes,
the
yeah.
last piece, so we've got mindfulness, we've got self-kindness, and then the last piece is what you brought up, Megan, it's common humanity.
Mm,
And that's not feeling alone in our own experience, that we're in this suffering together, that I'm not the only one going through these hardships, and that it's a stretch beyond the you and me divide, and to call upon this membership in our broader human family. And that's what
mm,
we're doing with the incredible digital literacy group at Maryland Avenue. It's how do we join together in this suffering and feel a little less alone.
yes, yeah. That is huge for all of us. So one of the things we did, Tekla, at our night at school, after we had this conversation and after we talked to the parents all about what the three components of self-compassion were, is we gave a handout and we talked through these values and our just digital awareness and ways to look at it, ways to come at it in terms of self-reflection. And I thought that was just such a helpful entree into the conversation with each other. And it had really had some useful steps to take going forward. So I wondered if you want to talk just a little bit about that. And then I think what I will do is actually attach that to the newsletter that comes out with this series, that my next newsletter. So listeners, if you are not on my newsletter, hop over to creamcitydreams.com and you'll see on the homepage is a way to sign up for the newsletter. I promise I don't spam. I wouldn't know how to spam if I tried. So I will just send emails out on the day that we have episodes, but I will make sure that listeners get a copy of this. But do you want to just break down just a little taste of that?
A little
Yeah.
tickler. Yeah. Yeah, beautiful summary. It was self-reflection and clarity. And I just a shout out to Dr. Carrie Conti, who does a lot of this work, and to my colleagues and friends at Planned Parenthood who've been doing values clarification work for decades and decades. So I just want to give a shout out and plug to them. But clarity is really about considering and choosing how you want to be in relationship to these tools, to technology. So like asking a very basic question of what do I value?
Mm,
What's important to me? What are my priorities? How do I want to show up in this world? And how are my devices in service to me and my values? So
yeah.
a lot of these questions are going to have you really having more clarity around, are the tech behaviors leaving me feeling out of alignment or in alignment with my values? And what we saw from our incredible group of parents at Digital Literacy Night is that this clarity really was a launch pad for them around some of the small behavior change that they agreed to do and to take to improve their relationship to tech.
Yeah. It's funny. I wonder if part of the manipulation of these big companies is to even, I don't know, get us to not even be in a state where we can self reflect. You know what I mean? Like, because that seemed like that night, it was like, oh, wow. I mean, because I knew this was coming and we had talked, like I was in the self-reflective mode, but how many people was it maybe the first time that they were considering their values around screens and around this technology and stuff? And I wonder if, I don't know, there's something manipulative with what they're doing so that we don't even get to that stage because we're so in it.
Well, the commodity is what we're talking about on this podcast. The commodity is your attention. It's the
Mm,
attention economy. That is what we are in. Everyone is in a race, as I've said before, it's the Center for Humane Tech says, to the bottom of your brainstem. Attention is the commodity. So
yeah.
if you want to reclaim your attention, your connection to others, yourself, the world, it's about that awareness and that
Yes.
clarity.
Well, Tekla, I'm so grateful for you joining me for week 3 in this podcast. This is such a even though it's kind of a heavy topic, I feel like it's so joyful and fun to talk about because it's just helpful to for us to be more aware. I don't know how many more times I can say the word aware in this podcast, but for us to just get a handle on this because summer's coming up and kids are going to be out of school and we've got a lot to think about there, but also just where are we going in this life, in this world, and who do we want to be? You know, I like
Mm.
maybe ultimately that's the question. Who do we want to be?
Who do
You
we want to
know,
be?
how do we
How
want
do
to
we
show
want to
up?
model those behaviors for our kids? How do we want to show up for the world and our communities?
Yes,
Communities.
exactly.
Um, you put out the summer of joy, so I answered the call.
Yes, it's coming. It's coming. It's here. Well, I just want to say that next week we'll be back, our last week in this in between season, and we will be talking about real practical things of what to do, how movements we can make, small steps, big steps. I'm doing this detox in June where I'm going to take Instagram and Facebook off and I won't be posting. And I'm anticipating, oh, I don't know. I got a lot of questions for you about how I'm going to do this, how to do it well, how to not mess it up, what to do if I do mess up. All of these things we're going to talk about next week. So thank you for coming back.
Thank you.
Well, I hope this has been helpful. I hope hearing a little bit more about the difference between self compassion and self care was useful. I hope that you're able to practice the two in tandem because remember, one without the other doesn't do a whole lot of good either. And don't forget to sign up for the newsletter because I will be sending out a set of questions that if you're curious about this, if you're thinking of dipping your toe in the detox with me, or even just wanting to be more mindful of your own relationship or your own behaviors around technology, we have some questions to get you started. So I will send those out to newsletter subscribers so you can hopefully find some time to reflect. All right, I will be back next week with Thekla to conclude this in between series, and we are going to be talking about all the helpful tips to actually get through this month of June. Whether you're coming along on the detox or not, we're talking about little things that you can do to change behaviors, to change habits, to build new habits. We'll be talking about ways to handle some of the things that come up when you attempt to change behaviors. In this case, a detox from social media. We'll be talking about withdrawals and withdrawal symptoms. We'll be talking about grief and grieving the loss of, what may have become like a friend, this social media. We'll be talking about social media versus isolation media and when to spot the difference and how spotting the difference just might be helpful in choosing to engage with it or whether you choose to engage with it. And we have a special invitation for newsletter subscribers in June. So tune in next week to the last episode in this series before I begin the summer season of joy on June 4th. And remember, I am not on socials next month, so I'm counting on you, Cream City Dreamers, to share these episodes. And so grateful when you do. Can't wait to have you along with us next week. Until then, Milwaukee, keep on dreaming.